Hello and welcome to a book review by Warhammer 40k bookreviews.com. Today I'm taking a look at The Siege of Castellax. Space Marines, they're a powerful force of destruction, with their bolters shooting self-propelled explosive rounds and their snarling chainswords that rip through anything foolish enough to stand in their way. This description is even more apt when it comes to the Chaos Space Marines, who live up to all of that, but with more spikes and the occasional demonic mutation thrown in there for good measure. The brutish orcs are no slouches either when it comes to destructive potential. They're experts in the field of recklessly streaming at an enemy and hacking it to small pieces, all the while ignoring horrible losses. So you can imagine the sort of carnage that ensues when an army of orcs descends on the planet Castellax, which is a manufacturing world held by the Company of Chaos Space Marines from the Iron Warriors. This is the explosive setting of the Siege of Castellax. As the story opens, we are treated to the horrible spectacle that is a full-scale orc planetary invasion. From their huge asteroid-turned spaceships, rocks, the orcs descend in a near endless stream of fury and battle lust onto the home of the Third Grand Company of the Iron Warriors. The Iron Warriors on Castellax number less than 100 Space Marines, but they have a large population of miserable slaves that are ready to be sent to their death in defense of their merciless masters. Chief among the characters in the Siege of Castellax are the Iron Warriors themselves, of course. The Iron Warriors on Castellax spend almost as much time plotting against their brothers as they do fighting their enemies. The ancient warsmith Andras is the leader of the Third Grand Company, but mostly we follow the antics of his underlings, especially over Captain Valax and Captain Rodan, who is the leader of the jetpack-equipped Raptors. As the book goes on, the fight against the orcs turn ever more bloody, and so does the internal maneuvering amongst the Iron Warriors. Giving a somewhat more readable perspective to the whole scene of carnage and free-flowing guts is the story of a few of the human slaves of the Iron Warriors. Having been caught in the middle of a rock and a hard place, the Iron Warrior slaves must now choose between a violent end at the hands of the Orc invaders or an equally violent but much more painful and slow death at the hands of the Iron Warrior's sadistic slave master, Skin Taker Algol. The pacing of the Siege of Castellax is pretty spot on. There is no doubt that the battles themselves are the main draw of the book. The author, C.L. Werner, doles out these brutal sequences in a manner that lets you enjoy the magnificent carnage in its full glory, but then throws in a few sections of more sedate action to set things up for another big blast of Greenskin on Astartes action. As Rodan is captain of the Raptors, many battle passages describe the deadly aerial attacks of these airborne predators. Despite the Iron Warriors being cast at least as evil and hateful as the invading orcs, you can't help but feel some sense of awe and glee when the pack of raptors dive into the heart of an orc horde, smashing Xenos skulls with every swipe of their chainsword. I also have to mention that the Siege of Castellax gives us a deeper glimpse into orc society and what goes on in a walk during an invasion. This is really interesting to read, as it's not often that we get a peek behind the scenes of the orcs. With all that being said, if you're looking for a really deep plot with excellent character building and grand tales that weave into the greater fate of the Warhammer 40k universe, then there's not much of that going on in Siege of Castellax. The Siege of Castellax does the job it sets out to do and does it well. It's a well-paced war novel that provides excellent entertainment in the time that it takes to read through it. Once you're done with it, there's not much to ponder or wonder about, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. In that regard, you could consider the Siege of Castellax itself much akin to an orc invasion. Delivered with much force, hitting with much power and little subtlety, but afterwards ebbing out and leaving the participant in search for their next fix. I give the Siege of Castellax 3 out of 5 chainswords.